Hey, how's it going? I just wanted to take a few minutes and go over a little bit about negotiation with you. Just think back for a minute to the latest negotiation you've been involved in. Maybe you were negotiating for a salary at work. Maybe you've been negotiating with a coworker. Maybe you've bought a car recently. Maybe you bought a home recently. Negotiation is everywhere. But in the latest one that you've had, how did you come away from that experience? What was that like for you? Did you come away feeling like you got the very best deal you could get? Did you come away from that experience feeling as though you gave away too much? I think that a lot of people are uncomfortable with negotiation. Don't feel as though they're quite the best at it. They would like to be better, but are not sure how to go about it. I don't know that I'm going to be able to solve that for you. I certainly don't want to claim that I'm going to make that better for you. I would say that it takes practice and that negotiation is something that is a life skill. It is a basic skill. As a matter of fact, we're talking about it here in chapter 3 because it forms the basis of all of the other tools and techniques in your toolbox. It's the foundational one. And so every other one is going to build off of negotiation. So if you tend to shy away from it, you're missing this important skill that can help you in many other areas of your life besides, just going and buying a car, buying a house, big ticket items. Just think about when you've negotiated, when you've done some form of negotiation, not only about the experience, but what type of negotiation did you undertake? Were you involved in? There are four basic ones, and we're going to talk about those in a minute. But I want you to look real quick at your textbook on page 65, the beginning of the chapter. There's a quote at the top, and it's an important quote. It's from Jonathan Cohen. This is an excerpt from a 2003 article that he wrote for I believe it was the Conflict Resolution Quarterly. It says negotiation is derived from the Latin neg, or meaning not, and otium, meaning leisure or ease. Hence, the word negotiation reflects the inherent tension, not leisure, within the activity. And so, one of the reasons that we often feel uncomfortable with negotiation, besides maybe our lack of practice in it, our lack of experience in it, is it's tense. And it's tense for several reasons that we'll get into in just a minute. But the four basic approaches to negotiation that your book covers, the first one is power negotiation. And that's sort of what I've been alluding to here in the first few minutes, is the first way of negotiation that most of us learn is power negotiation. Power negotiation is where parties are in open competition with one another. This is your typical going and buying a car experience, unless you're buying from one of those quote unquote no haggle dealerships. They're playing on your emotions by doing that, and it's actually anti-consumer, anti-customer to not allow you the opportunity to, negotiate a better deal. They're basically saying that you're going to pay the price no matter what. And so I don't particularly care for that. But for some people who don't want the tenseness of power negotiation, I guess that works. But again, this is the first approach that we learn, this open competition with each other. It's probably the dominant approach. As a matter of fact, when I ask you what you think of, this is probably what you think of is power-based negotiation. The approach dealing with conflicts under this approach is basically whoever is strongest, whoever is the most influential, whoever is the most intelligent, whoever has the most information winds up walking away as the winner. And that's the other thing that we don't like about negotiation, I think, most of the time, is there's a winner and a loser, and nobody wants to be the loser. I don't even like to use that term. but a lot of times we shy away from it. I guess the best description of it is it's adversarial. Um, Power negotiation is adversarial by its nature. I'll tell you a quick story about power negotiation and my experience with it. My dad was a car guy from way back. As a matter of fact, one of the accusations that was made against him in my childhood, they say, hey, your dad buys a new car every time it needs a pair of tires. It needs a new set of tires. And so he was an insurance salesman. He liked cars, but he was a salesman by nature. And so, he loved to drive a hard bargain. And he wanted me to learn how to negotiate. And so he would take me with him when he would go to buy a new car. And of course, obviously, when I got older, I was a young teenager when he would take me on these shopping sprees, and they would last all day. When Dad was going to buy a car, it was going to take all day because he was going to go from dealership to dealership to dealership to find that best deal, and he was going to haggle, he was going to twist some arms, and so to speak, and really feel like he got the best deal. And I think that he made a sport of it, really. He loved to haggle with the salespeople. He loved to get with them and negotiate. He'd pick out a car that he wanted. He'd decide what it was he was going to pay based on what the prices were. He'd try to get it down, $3,000 or $4,000, and feel like he'd accomplished something. And so we'd go from dealership to dealership to dealership all day long, and he loved to pit one against the other. He could get a better deal across town, and so you need to, if you want me to buy from you, you need to meet this deal. So, as a matter of fact, when he decided what he was going to pay, he would be so serious that he would write out a blank check. He'd tear it out of his checkbook. He'd pass it across the counter to the sales guy, blank check with the amount written in, and say, this is how serious I am. Push that across the table to him. If it didn't work, he'd call for the sales manager, and, it would just continue on. And sometimes it worked and sometimes it didn't. So that's, that's the truth of power negotiation. Sometimes you win, sometimes you walk away without getting anything you want. And that's part of the weakness of it. Now, Dave Ramsey says something very similar. If you listen to Dave Ramsey or have for very long, he always talks about when you decide you want to buy something, take cash with you and basically peel off that cash, start counting it in front of the seller as if that's always going to induce them to take your price. It doesn't always work that way. As a matter of fact, I tried that one time and it didn't work. They just laughed at me. Anyway, so that's power negotiation. It's adversarial. It's a competition, and one of the things you tend to do is you tend to withhold information. That's an important piece of information as we go forward in this. So the second approach to negotiation, or that your book talks about, is rights-based negotiation. In my mind, this is really when you have to interface with the legal system. If you have an attorney, even if you're in court-connected mediation and you have an attorney. I know that a lot of divorce settlements require attorneys there, even though a lot of this stuff is regulated before it goes to the judge. The lawyers, work shuttle diplomacy. Plaintiff is over here, defendant is over here. Each one has their lawyer, and they never see each other. The lawyers get together in the hallway and pass back and forth offers and demands and so on and so forth. But rights-based negotiation, according to Barsky on page 69, he says the rights-based approach was intended to be the enlightened response to the injustice and barbarism of the power approach by imposing rules of fair play. Those rules of fair play are laws and regulations. When a judge makes a decision in a court case, he's basing that decision not on his feelings or based on your feelings. It's based on law. And so that's really, in my mind, the best example of rights-based negotiation. And it is the appropriate approach for certain things. When there is a legal matter under investigation, then that's certainly the appropriate form of negotiation. And so this is not to say that one is better than the other. sometimes these things are contextual. There's no way to get around positional bargaining, power-based negotiation. Anytime you're buying a home or an automobile, that's just the way it goes. That's just the way it works. And so, you know, some of this is going to help you make have better outcomes in the future, I hope. So anyway, again, rights-based negotiation is pretty adversarial, which is oftentimes tense, uncomfortable. So